Welcome in, friend. Settle close for a story born in storm and gunfire, where two wounded souls found courage in the last place either expected. The first time Lenora Holloway saw Wade Crawford in 6 years, he was standing in her barn doorway with a revolver on his hip and rain turning the world to mud behind him. She raised the lantern higher, and the golden light caught the scar along his jaw, the weariness in his eyes, the way his hand hovered near that gun like he expected trouble even here. Her heart kicked hard against her ribs. She knew that face. She knew what it had cost her. "You should leave," she said, and her voice came out steady even though her hands wanted to shake. Wade took one step inside. The storm followed him, cold winds scattering hay across the floor. "I came to help," he said. His voice was rougher than she remembered, worn down like everything else about him. Lenora set the lantern on a barrel and crossed her arms. She would not let him see how his presence unraveled her. "I don't need your kind of help." The foreclosure notice had arrived 3 days earlier. Juniper Ranch, her father's orchard, the only home she had ever fought for, would belong to the bank in 30 days, unless she paid $800. She had $216 saved. The rest might as well have been the moon. Her younger brother Caleb had suggested selling to a consortium from the east. Lenora refused. Her sister-in-law Marianne whispered that perhaps marriage to a wealthy man might solve everything. Lenora refused that too. She had been married once in a way, and the memory still burned. Wade stepped further into the barn. Lightning cracked outside, bright enough to turn the walls silver for a heartbeat. "I heard about the foreclosure," he said. His gaze moved across the barn, cataloging exits and shadows the way soldiers did. Lenora felt that old familiar ache, the one she had buried deep after he left Black Creek with his regiment, and never wrote, never returned, never finished what they started. "You've been gone 6 years," she said. "You don't get to hear about my troubles now." He looked at her then, really looked, and something in his expression cracked open. "I know I don't," he said quietly. "But I'm here anyway." She wanted to throw him out. She wanted to ask where he had been, why he had abandoned her, why he looked so haunted now. Instead, she said, "What do you want, Wade?" He pulled a folded paper from inside his coat. "Marry me." The words hung in the air like smoke. Lenora stared at him. He did not smile, did not soften. "This isn't a joke," he continued. "Marry me. I've got money saved. Enough to cover the foreclosure and then some. You get to keep the ranch. I get a place to stay that isn't a boarding house or a camp. We both get what we need." Lenora's throat tightened. 6 years ago, they had stood in front of a traveling preacher at the edge of town, young and reckless and so certain. The preacher had been a fraud. The marriage never took. Wade left 2 weeks later with his company, chasing glory or escape or whatever young men chased in wartime. She never saw him again until tonight. And now he stood here offering her a transaction, cold and practical, as if they had never touched, never whispered promises under the cottonwoods, never broken each other's hearts. "You think I'd marry you for money?" she said. Her voice shook. Wade flinched, but he did not lower the paper. "I think you're desperate," he said. "And I think I owe you." She laughed, bitter and sharp. "You don't owe me anything. You made your choice." His jaw tightened. The scar pulled white against his skin. "I made a lot of choices," he said. "Most of them wrong. Let me make one right. The storm howled outside. Rain hammered the roof in waves. Lenora felt the weight of 30 days pressing down. The bank's cold promise. Caleb's worried eyes. The orchard her father planted with his own hands, slowly dying, because she could not afford enough workers, or water rights, or seed stock. She felt the shame of needing help, the terror of losing everything, the awful truth that Wade's offer might be the only path forward. "Why now?" she asked. "Why come back after all this time?" Wade looked away. "Because I'm tired of running," he said. She did not trust him. She did not trust herself around him. But the desperation was real, and the clock was ticking. And she had always been a woman who chose survival over pride. "If I say yes," she said slowly, "this is business. Nothing more. You stay in the old foreman's cabin. You don't touch me. You don't pretend this is anything but a deal." Wade nodded. "Agreed," he said. "But we do it legal this time. Real preacher. Real papers." She swallowed hard. "When?" "3 days," he said. "Gives you time to think. Gives me time to settle my horse and get the money from the bank in Silver Bend." She wanted to say no. She wanted to slam the barn door and ride into the storm and find another way. But there was no other way, and they both knew it. "Fine," she said. 3 days. The wedding happened on a Thursday. The preacher was Reverend Calhoun, a man with kind eyes and a voice like gravel, who asked no questions when Wade handed him $20. Caleb stood as witness, his face tight with disapproval. Marianne clutched a handkerchief and wept quietly, though Lenora could not tell if the tears were for joy or sorrow. A handful of townspeople gathered outside the church, whispering. Lenora wore her best dress, the green one with the fitted bodice, and felt like a fraud. Wade wore a clean shirt under his vest and looked like a man walking to his own hanging. "Do you take this woman?" Reverend Calhoun said, and Wade said, "I do." "Do you take this man?" And Lenora forced the words past the knot in her throat. "I do." The preacher pronounced them married. Wade did not kiss her. They signed the papers in silence and walked out into the bright autumn sun as husband and wife, strangers bound by ink and necessity. That night, Wade moved his belongings into the foreman's cabin, a small structure near the orchard with a stone fireplace and a narrow bed. Lenora watched from the main house window as lamplight flickered to life inside. She told herself this was fine. This was what she wanted. A business arrangement. Nothing more. But her chest ached, and sleep came slow. The next morning, Wade was up before dawn, working. She found him in the orchard, pruning dead branches from the apple trees, with steady, careful hands. He had rolled his sleeves to his elbows, and she could see scars on his forearms, pale lines that spoke of violence survived. He did not look up when she approached. "I thought you were just paying off the debt," she said. Wade set down the shears. "I'm here," he said. "Might as well be useful." Over the next week they fell into a rhythm. Wade worked the orchard and the fences, repaired the barn door, cleared the irrigation ditch that had been clogged for months. Lenora managed the house, the accounts, the endless negotiations with suppliers who wanted payment she did not have. They spoke in short sentences, practical and distant. But she noticed things. The way Wade always positioned himself between her and the road when riders passed. The way he startled at loud noises. The way he stared into the fire at night like he was seeing ghosts. One evening she brought him supper at the cabin. He opened the door, surprise crossing his face. "You don't have to do that," he said. "I know," she replied. She handed him the covered plate. He took it, and their fingers brushed. The contact was brief, but it sent a shock up her arm. Wade pulled back like he had been burned. "Thank you," he said quietly. She nodded and left, before the silence could stretch too long. The town social came on Saturday. Lenora had not planned to go, but Marianne insisted. "You're married now," she said brightly. "People will expect to see you both." Lenora tried to argue, but Caleb sided with his wife. "It'll look strange if you don't go," he said. "Besides, it's just dancing and gossip. What harm can it do?" Wade did not want to go either. She could see it in the set of his shoulders when she told him. But he agreed, the same way he agreed to everything, with that quiet soldier's discipline. They rode into town together in the wagon, side by side, not touching. The social was held in the largest barn on the edge of Black Creek. Lanterns strung from the rafters, a fiddler and a guitarist playing lively tunes. People turned to stare when they entered. Lenora felt the weight of every gaze, every whispered question. Wade kept his hand near hers, not quite touching, but close enough that she felt his presence like heat. Caleb pulled Wade aside almost immediately, his voice low and tense. Lenora could not hear the words, but she saw her brother's face, tight with anger or worry, or both. Wade listened without expression, then said something short and final. Caleb walked away, shaking his head. Lenora intercepted Wade as he returned. "What did he say?" Wade glanced at her. "He thinks I'm using you," he said. "Thinks I'll take the ranch and disappear." She felt a flash of anger on his behalf, unexpected and fierce. "What did you tell him?" Wade looked at her directly. "I told him I'm not going anywhere," he said. And despite everything, despite the careful distance they maintained, despite the walls they had built, she believed him. The fiddler struck up a waltz. Couples moved onto the floor. Wade hesitated, then offered his hand. "May I?" he asked. It was the first time he had asked her for anything that was not purely practical. Lenora took his hand. His palm was warm and calloused. He led her onto the floor, and they began to move. He was a better dancer than she expected, smooth and steady, guiding her through the turns with quiet confidence. She had forgotten what it felt like to be this close to him, to feel the solid strength of him, to catch the scent of soap and leather, and something uniquely Wade. They did not speak. The music swelled around them, and for a moment, just a moment, Lenora let herself imagine this was real, that they were truly married, truly together, truly safe. Then she saw the man watching from the corner. He was tall and broad, with a drooping mustache and a star pinned to his vest. Marshall Trent Garvin. He had been courting her before Wade returned, persistent and presumptuous, convinced she would accept him eventually. His eyes were cold now, fixed on Wade with an intensity that made her stomach twist. Wade noticed too. His hand tightened slightly on her waist. "You know him?" she asked quietly. Wade's jaw tightened. "We've met," he said. That was all. But the ease of the dance was gone, replaced by a watchfulness that set her nerves on edge. When the song ended, Garvin crossed the floor. "Mrs. Crawford," he said, tipping his hat to Lenora. His voice was cordial, but his eyes stayed on Wade. "Marshal," she replied carefully. Garvin's smile did not reach his eyes. "I don't believe I've had the pleasure of congratulating your husband," he said. "Wade Crawford, isn't it?" Wade met his gaze without flinching. "That's right," he said. Garvin's smile widened. "Thought I recognized you," he said. "You rode with Captain Nathaniel Bryce's company during the war." Wade said nothing. Lenora felt the tension coil tighter. Garvin continued, voice deceptively light. "Heard some interesting stories about what happened after Bryce's company disbanded. Some say there was a payroll robbery. Some say a few of the men went bad." Wade's expression never changed, but Lenora felt the shift in him, a coiled readiness. "I mustered out clean," Wade said quietly. Garvin nodded slowly. "I'm sure you did," he said. "Still, I'll be keeping an eye on things, just to be certain." He tipped his hat again and walked away. Lenora waited until they were outside, away from the crowd, before she spoke. "Is it true?" she asked. Wade leaned against the wagon, staring at the dark horizon. "There was a payroll robbery," he said slowly. "3 men from our company. I wasn't one of them. But I knew about it. I didn't stop it. I didn't report it. And that makes me guilty enough." She absorbed this. The secret hung between them, sharp and ugly. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was a coward," Wade said. His voice was flat, stripped of excuses. "Because I thought keeping quiet would keep me safe. Because I wanted to forget the war and everything I'd done in it." He looked at her finally. "I'm not a good man, Lenora. I never pretended to be." She should have been angry. She should have felt betrayed. But all she felt was a strange, aching understanding. "We're all trying to forget something," she said quietly. He studied her face. "What are you trying to forget?" Her first marriage. The real one. The one she never spoke of. A man named Thomas Holloway, chosen by her father. Cold and controlling in cruel and small, cutting ways. She had been 19 and obedient. The marriage lasted 2 years before Thomas died in a riding accident. She had mourned as a widow should, and secretly felt relief so profound it shamed her. That she had never told anyone. That was her sin, her secret weight. But she did not say any of that to Wade. Instead, she said, "We should go home." And they rode back in silence, the weight of their shared past pressing down like storm clouds. The next morning, trouble arrived in the form of Clayton Mercer. He was a land agent for the Eastern Consortium, sharp-suited and smooth-voiced. And he came with an offer. $5,000 for Juniper Ranch. More than enough to pay off the debt and start over somewhere else. Lenora stood on the porch and refused. Caleb, standing beside her, looked torn. "That's a lot of money, Lenora," he said carefully. She turned on him. "This is our father's land," she said. "You want to sell it to strangers?" Caleb flushed. "I want you to be practical," he said. "You're barely keeping this place afloat. Maybe it's time to let go." Wade emerged from the barn, tools in hand. Mercer's gaze flicked to him, calculating. "And who might you be?" he asked. Wade set down the tools. "Her husband," he said. Mercer's eyebrows lifted. "I see," he said. "Well, Mr. Crawford, perhaps you can talk sense into your wife. This is a generous offer. It won't stand forever. Wade looked at Lenora. She met his eyes, and something passed between them. An understanding that needed no words. "The ranch isn't for sale," Wade said. Mercer's smile thinned. "I think Mrs. Crawford can speak for herself," he said. "She can," Lenora said sharply. "And she's telling you no." Mercer tipped his hat, his expression cooling. "Your choice," he said. "But desperation has a way of changing minds." He mounted his horse and rode away, leaving a trail of dust. Caleb turned to Lenora. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. Then he walked back toward the house. Wade watched him go. "Your brother doesn't trust me," he said. Lenora sighed. "He doesn't trust anyone," she replied. "He's afraid of losing everything." "Aren't you?" Wade asked. She looked at him. "Every day," she admitted. That afternoon they worked the orchard together. The apples were nearly ready for harvest, the trees heavy with fruit. Wade climbed the ladder while Lenora held the basket. He moved with careful efficiency, plucking each apple and lowering it gently. The sunlight filtering through the leaves dappled his face, softening the hard lines. "You're good at this," she said. Wade glanced down. "My family had an orchard," he said. "Long time ago." She had not known that. "Where?" she asked. "Missouri," he said. "My father sold it after my mother died. I was 12. His voice was matter-of-fact, but she heard the old grief underneath. "I'm sorry," she said. Wade shrugged. "Long time ago," he repeated. They worked in silence for a while. Then Lenora said, "Why did you really come back, Wade?" He paused, apple in hand. "Because I heard you were in trouble," he said. "And because I never stopped thinking about you." The words landed between them, simple and devastating. Lenora's breath caught. She did not know what to say. Wade descended the ladder, set the basket down. "I know I don't have the right," he continued. "I know I left. I know I broke what we had. But I came back because the thought of you losing this place, losing everything, was worse than staying away." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to reach out, to close the distance, to let herself trust. But the fear was still there, sharp and cold. "You left once," she said. "What's to stop you from leaving again?" Wade met her eyes. "Nothing," he said, "except me choosing to stay. And I'm choosing to stay, Lenora. Every day. That's all I can offer." His honesty cut through her defenses. She nodded slowly, not quite ready to forgive, but no longer quite so certain of her anger. That night she dreamed of Thomas. She woke gasping, tangled in sweat-damp sheets, heart hammering. The nightmare was always the same. His voice, cold and cutting, telling her she was worthless, that she would fail, that she was only good for obedience. She sat up, pressing her palms to her eyes. Moonlight streamed through the window. She needed air. She needed to move. She pulled on a shawl and went outside. The night was clear and cool, stars thick overhead. She walked toward the orchard, her feet finding the familiar path by instinct. And there, sitting on the porch of the foreman's cabin, was Wade. He looked up as she approached, surprise and concern crossing his face. "You all right?" he asked. She almost said yes, the automatic lie. But she was tired of lying, tired of pretending. "No," she said. Wade stood. Can I help? She laughed, bitter and soft. I don't think anyone can, she said. He waited, patient. And somehow that patience unraveled her. I was married before, she said. The words came out rough. Before you. His name was Thomas. My father arranged it. Thomas was cold, controlling. He never hit me, but he might as well have. Every word was a wound. She wrapped her arms around herself. He died 2 years into the marriage. Riding accident. And I was relieved. I was glad he was gone. And that makes me a terrible person. Wade was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, It makes you human. She looked at him, startled. He stepped closer. You survived something hard, he said. That's not a sin, Lenora. That's strength. She felt tears prick her eyes. I don't feel strong, she whispered. You are, Wade said. You've kept this ranch alive. You've held your family together. You've survived a bad marriage and a war, and now this foreclosure fight. That's strength. She wiped her eyes, embarrassed. You don't have to say that, she said. I'm not just saying it. Wade replied. His voice was low, earnest. I've seen a lot of broken people, Lenora. You're not one of them. The silence that followed was different, softer. Lenora felt something shift inside her, a wall beginning to crack. Thank you, she said quietly. Wade nodded. Anytime, he said. She should have gone back to the house. Instead, she sat down on the porch step. Wade hesitated, then sat beside her. Close, but not touching. They watched the stars together, and for the first time since he returned, Lenora felt a fragile, tentative peace. The trouble came 3 days later. Lenora was in town buying supplies when she saw the smoke, black and thick, rising from the direction of Juniper Ranch. Her heart stopped. She abandoned the wagon and rode hard, fear clawing at her throat. By the time she reached the ranch, the fire was already dying, beaten back by Wade and Caleb and 2 hired hands. The damage was contained to the old storage shed, but the message was clear. Someone had set it deliberately. Wade's face was grim, streaked with soot. He pointed to the scorch marks, the kerosene smell. This wasn't an accident, he said. Lenora's hands shook. Who would do this? Wade glanced toward town. Someone who wants you desperate enough to sell, he said. Caleb stormed over, fury in every line of his body. This is your fault, he spat at Wade. You brought trouble here. Wade did not flinch. Maybe, he said. But I'm not leaving. Caleb stepped closer, fists clenched. Lenora moved between them. Stop it, she said. Both of you. This isn't helping. Caleb turned on her. You're so desperate to prove you don't need help that you married a stranger, he said. And now look what's happening. Lenora's temper flared. I married him to save this ranch, she said. The same ranch you wanted me to sell. Caleb recoiled as if slapped. Marianne appeared, pulling him away, murmuring soothing words. Wade watched them go, his expression unreadable. That night, Lenora and Wade sat at the kitchen table, going over what they knew. Mercer wants the land, Lenora said. But would he burn us out? Wade tapped his fingers on the table. Men like Mercer don't get their hands dirty, he said. But they hire men who will. She felt cold. So what do we do? Wade looked at her. We set a trap, he said. If someone's going to come back and finish the job, we'll be ready. It was a dangerous plan. It meant putting themselves in the line of fire. But Lenora could see no other way. All right, she said. We do it together. The next night they waited. Wade positioned himself in the barn with a rifle. Lenora stayed in the house with a shotgun across her lap, watching the windows. The hours stretched long and tense. Midnight came and went. Then, just after 2 a.m, she heard it. Hoofbeats. Quiet. Careful. She signaled Wade with the lantern. 2 quick flashes. He moved like a shadow, slipping out the side door. 3 riders approached. They dismounted near the barn, carrying torches and kerosene. Lenora's breath caught. Wade stepped into the open, rifle leveled. That's far enough, he said. The riders froze. One of them swore. The leader, a wiry man with a scarred face, raised his hand slowly. We don't want trouble, he said. Wade's voice was ice. Then you shouldn't have come here. Drop the torches. The men hesitated. Then the scarred man reached for his gun. Wade fired, the shot cracking through the night. The bullet took the man's hat clean off. The next one goes through your chest, Wade said. Drop it. The men dropped their weapons. Lenora emerged from the house, shotgun ready. Wade kept the rifle trained on them. Who hired you? He demanded. The scarred man spat. Go to hell, he said. Wade stepped closer, and there was something in his face, something cold and dangerous that made the man flinch. I've been to hell, Wade said quietly, and I came back. Now tell me who hired you, or I'll send you there myself. The man broke. Mercer, he said, paid us to burn you out. Said if the ranch was damaged enough, you'd have to sell. Wade's jaw tightened. Where is he now? The man shook his head. Don't know. He stays at the hotel in town. That's all I know. Wade looked at Lenora. She nodded. He turned back to the men. You're going to ride to Marshal Garvin, he said. You're going to tell him everything. And if you don't, I'll hunt you down myself. Understood? The men nodded frantically. Wade gestured with the rifle. Go! They scrambled onto their horses and fled. Lenora lowered the shotgun, adrenaline still singing through her veins. Wade turned to her. You all right? He asked. She nodded. You? He gave a faint, grim smile. I've had worse nights, he said. The marshal arrived at dawn, brought by the testimony of the captured arsonists. Mercer was arrested at the hotel, protesting his innocence even as the evidence mounted against him. The consortium disavowed him, claiming ignorance. The charges stuck. Mercer would stand trial, and Juniper Ranch was safe, at least for now. But the victory felt hollow. Caleb came to Lenora that afternoon, his face drawn. I owe you an apology, he said. And I owe Wade one too. I was wrong. Lenora wanted to be angry, but she was too tired. He stayed, she said. When it mattered, he stayed. Caleb nodded slowly. I see that now, he said. That evening, Lenora found Wade by the creek, washing soot and blood from his hands. She sat beside him on the bank. You saved us, she said. Wade shook his head. We saved us, he corrected. She looked at him. Really looked. The weariness in his eyes. the scars on his hands, the quiet strength that had never left him, even when the war tried to take everything else. "I was wrong about you," she said softly. He glanced at her. "You had every right to be angry," he said. "I left. I broke your trust." She took a breath. "You came back," she said. "That matters." Wade set down the cloth, turned to face her. "I need you to know something," he said. "This marriage, this arrangement, it stopped being just business for me a long time ago." Maybe it never was. Her heart stuttered. "Wade," she started. But he continued, urgent now. "I know I don't deserve another chance," he said. "I know I've got a past and scars and trouble that follows me. But I love you, Lenora. I've loved you since we were young and stupid and thought a fake preacher could make us married. And I love you now. Here, with everything broken and real between us." Tears pricked her eyes. She had been so certain she could not trust him, could not let him in. But he had stayed. He had fought. He had stood beside her when it would have been easier to walk away. And somewhere in the midst of all that, she had started to love him again too. Maybe she had never stopped. "I love you too," she said, and the words felt like breaking open, like breathing after drowning. Wade's expression cracked, relief and joy and disbelief all at once. He reached for her, hesitant, and she closed the distance. They kissed, and it was everything she remembered, and nothing like it. It was earned. It was real. It was theirs. They pulled apart slowly, foreheads resting together. "So what now?" Wade asked, his voice rough. "Now we make this real," Lenora said. "Not just on paper." She smiled, tentative but genuine. "Now we build a life." Wade smiled back, and it transformed his face, chasing away the shadows. "I can do that," he said. The weeks that followed were not easy. There was still work to be done, debts to manage, relationships to mend. But they did it together. Wade moved into the main house, into Lenora's room, into her life in all the ways that mattered. They harvested the apples side by side. They negotiated with suppliers and rebuilt the storage shed. They attended church on Sunday, and this time, when the townspeople stared, Lenora did not care. She had Wade's hand in hers, and that was enough. Caleb and Marianne made peace with the marriage. Slowly, Caleb began to see Wade not as a threat, but as an ally. They worked the land together, and a cautious friendship grew. Marianne, ever the optimist, declared that Lenora looked happier than she had in years. And it was true. One evening, a month after Mercer's arrest, Lenora and Wade sat on the porch watching the sunset. The sky was ablaze with orange and gold, the orchard stretching out before them in neat, fruitful rows. "This is what I fought for," Lenora said softly. Wade laced his fingers through hers. "It's what we both fought for," he said. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Tell me about Missouri," she said. Wade was quiet for a moment. Then, he began to speak. He told her about his mother's orchard, about climbing trees as a boy, about the smell of apple blossoms in spring. He told her about the war, the things he had seen, the men he had lost. He told her about the shame and the fear and the long journey back to something like redemption. And Lenora listened, holding his hand, bearing witness to his story, the way he had borne witness to hers. When he finished, she said, We're both a little broken, aren't we? Wade smiled faintly. Maybe, he said. But broken doesn't mean finished. She kissed him, slow and sweet. No, she agreed. It doesn't. Winter came, and with it the first snow. The orchard slept under a blanket of white, and the ranch settled into a quieter rhythm. Wade chopped firewood and mended fences. Lenora kept the books and planned for spring planting. They read by the fire in the evenings, legs tangled together, content in the warmth and silence. It was a simple life, but it was theirs, and it was enough. In February, Marshal Garvin came by. He had left Black Creek shortly after Mercer's trial, transferred to another district. But he stopped by on his way through to shake Wade's hand. "I was wrong about you," Garvin said gruffly. Wade nodded. "I appreciate that," he said. Garvin tipped his hat to Lenora. "You got a good man, Mrs. Crawford," he said. "Take care of each other." They promised they would. Spring arrived with a rush of green and warmth. The orchard bloomed, pink and white blossoms covering the trees like snow. Lenora stood in the midst of it, breathing in the sweet fragrance, feeling the sun on her face. Wade came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Beautiful," he murmured. She leaned back against him. "Yes," she said. "It is." They had come so far, from the storm-lit barn and the desperate bargain to this moment of peace and promise. They had fought and bled and trusted, when trust seemed impossible. They had saved the ranch. They had saved each other. And now, standing in the orchard her father planted, held safe in Wade's arms, Lenora knew they would be all right. More than all right. They would thrive. The town social came again in May. This time Lenora and Wade arrived together without hesitation, without pretense. They danced, and it was easy, joyful, theirs. Caleb danced with Marianne nearby, smiling. The fiddler played a lively tune. The barn was full of light and laughter. And when Wade pulled Lenora close and whispered, "I love you," she said it back without fear. "I love you too." Summer brought the first real harvest since the foreclosure threat. The apples were abundant, sweet and crisp. They hired extra hands and worked from dawn to dusk, picking and sorting and packing. It was hard work, but satisfying. At the end of each day, Wade and Lenora collapsed into bed, exhausted and happy, wrapped around each other in the dark. "This is what I want," Lenora said one night. Wade kissed her forehead. "What's that?" he asked. "This," she said. "You. Us. Every day." Wade smiled against her hair. "You've got it," he promised. "For as long as you'll have me." "Forever then," she said. "Forever," he agreed. The years that followed were not without challenge. There were droughts and hard winters. There were disagreements and tough decisions. But they faced it all together, side by side, partners in every sense. They expanded the orchard, bought more land, built a new barn. Caleb and Marianne had children, and the ranch filled with laughter and noise. Wade taught the children to climb trees and pick apples. Lenora taught them to read and keep accounts. The family grew, and the ranch prospered. And on quiet evenings, when the work was done, and the children were asleep, and the stars hung thick overhead, Wade and Lenora would sit on the porch. They would hold hands and watch the orchard, the land they had fought for, the life they had built. Sometimes they spoke of the past, of the mistakes and the pain and the long road that brought them here. But mostly they sat in comfortable silence, content in each other's presence, grateful for the second chance they had been given. One such evening, years after that first storm-lit reunion, Lenora turned to Wade. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Coming back?" Wade looked at her, surprise and tenderness mingling in his expression. "Not for a single moment," he said. "This, you us, it's the best thing I ever did." She smiled, eyes bright. "Me too," she said. They kissed, slow and sweet. The kiss of a couple who had weathered storms and come out stronger. The orchard rustled in the breeze. The stars wheeled overhead, and Juniper Ranch, once nearly lost, stood solid and thriving, a testament to love and second chances, and the quiet, enduring strength of two people who chose each other every single day. Years turned to decades. Children grew and married. Grandchildren arrived. The orchard continued to produce, season after season, a living legacy. Wade's hair went silver. Lenora's face gained lines earned by laughter and sun. But their love never faded. If anything, it deepened, roots growing strong and tangled, impossible to separate. On their 20th anniversary, Caleb threw them a celebration. The whole town came. There was music and dancing and enough food to feed an army. Lenora wore a new dress, deep green like the one she had worn that first night. Wade wore his best coat and looked at her like she was the only person in the world. They danced, slow and easy, and the years fell away. "You're still the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," Wade murmured. Lenora laughed. "You're a terrible liar," she said. "But I love you anyway." Wade grinned. "Good," he said, "because you're stuck with me." "Forever," she agreed. "Forever." The night ended with fireworks, bright bursts of color against the black sky. Lenora and Wade stood together, his arm around her shoulders, her head on his chest. Their family surrounded them, generations of love and hard work and second chances. "This is everything," Lenora said softly. Wade kissed the top of her head. "Yes," he said. "It is." And under the fireworks, under the stars, on the land they had fought for and saved and built into something beautiful, Lenora Holloway Crawford and Wade Crawford stood together. They had started with a desperate bargain in a storm. They had built a love that could weather anything, and they would stand together, side by side, for all the days to come. The end was just the beginning, and it was more than enough.